welcome to the world's greatest Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I'm your co-host, Michael, and as always, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at Spidey comics from July of 1987.
And this is a very special month, right? Should we spoil it now or
Sure
wait
is.
to the end? Okay, we'll spoil it.
I feel like the title is gonna give it away for anybody who clicks onto it, maybe.
Yeah, this is the one where Peter Parker proposes to Mary Jane. And joining us is our returning co-host, Bex Luthor.
Hi, it's me. I'm hiding in my basement from the world because the world is scary and I don't like it.
Also, because it's a marriage episode, we thought we'd bring back Cousin Brandon. Thanks for joining us.
Because it's a marriage episode?
No tie-in. No, it was just a joke. There's no
I was
tie-in.
like, oh, you married? Congratulations.
Michael, was that a proposal?
Are you trying to ask a question?
Listen, I've
Live on the show?
I've got a ring on, but you know what?
Oh.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
You're on
Maybe
to
the
me.
flower girl. I'm so excited.
121 episodes just for that. Anyway, yeah, thanks for joining us. We know you're a little tired, so we'll try and get through these masterpieces as quickly as possible.
You do what you need to do. Don't speed up on my account. I'll tough it out.
All right. So we're gonna start off with
Web of Spider-Man number 28.
another fill-in. So yeah, Josh, why don't you tell us what happened in this one?
Yeah, it's a weird fill-in. It kind of feels like maybe it was maybe edited a little bit to feel like it was kind of like going on at the same time. I don't know if maybe this was an issue that they just pulled from the drawer because they were short on time or not. But yeah, we start off with Peter and MJ. They're on a ferry ride around the Statue of Liberty, and Peter kind of chuckles to himself, and MJ asks what he's laughing at, and he goes into the story. So this whole issue is him recalling a story about the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
So one day he's up on the Statue of Liberty on the torch, and he punches it because he gets angry. I can't remember exactly why. No, sorry. He goes up there to get his clothes that he put up there.
Right.
And it turns out that the torch is being taken away because it's going to be doing some like modifications and touch-ups and like cleaning on it, some restoration. So he doesn't know where it's being sent to. So he goes and asks the person he thinks would know the most about it, which is Robbie Robertson. So he tells him that the torch is actually being sent to California and it's going to be used in a parade. So Peter kind of makes up this thing like, oh, I was hoping I could do a story on it. So Robbie sends him to LA to take pictures and, help out the story there. We cut over to a group of people in LA who are like weird, like rich teens who...
I think the word you're looking for is assholes.
Yeah, they're just douchebags.
Yeah.
They're bougie. They're bourgeoisie. Get your torches and pictures.
Yeah, she asked the guy for another tray of sushi. Get the fuck out of here with that.
They have British accents and are very posh and are always pissed off at their butlers. So anyways, they have a plan to steal the torch and to use it as leverage for their political gain. I believe it's like some sort of like political thing that they're after. Anyways, it's not really important. They're awful people. Peter tries to get in to see the torch so he can grab his clothes with all his ID in it. He's not able to because the box hasn't been opened yet. So he goes to the beach and decides to have a good time. He falls asleep in the sun because he's so jet lagged, even though a supermodel, of course, is asking him to rub sunscreen all over her. He falls asleep and gets a sunburn. We cut over to the avocado gang again as they're testing out stun guns on the same butler. So again, being just awful people. Peter's putting on some sunscreen and he goes down. And we like at the same time, we're also like cutting back and forth to like the story and then back to Peter telling MJ on their like long walk through New York. So the avocado gang, they break in, a bunch of stuff happens. They leave with the torch and the semi, and Peter shows up and starts chasing them. The main guy, he leaves the truck in the semi without them, so they hijack a car and or take their car or whatever and start chasing behind him. So it turns into this like big high speed chase through LA when it all kind of leads to the moment where the main guy, who was cocky earlier about learning how to drive a semi truck, crashes the semi into a crowd of people, and the Statue of Liberty comes crashing down and lands on top of the vehicle with all of his friends in it. And the police show up, and Peter realizes that his clothes aren't in there for some strange reason. And as he's up there searching on the torch that's on top of the car, he realizes that the car is not in park, and the car starts sliding down a hill, and he's able to kind of web up like a big net between some buildings to stop the vehicle. And it turns out that his clothes just aren't in there. So he goes back to New York. Oh, yeah, the bad guys are arrested or whatever. Who cares? He goes back to New York, and it turns out that was a fake. And they had the real one in New York the whole time in a shipping crate. So he goes in there and takes his clothes. And the end. It's really not like a super important story. It's not like great. It was kind of fun to see these like avocado douchebags get their comeuppance at the end, but it was like a pretty whatever story I found.
Here's the thing. I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was okay as a fill-in. I read it as a kid. However, during your recap, I noticed Cousin Brandon kind of shaking his head and huffing and puffing a little bit. Cousin Brandon, I don't think you enjoyed it as much as we did. What did you think?
No, I thought it was fucking garbage.
Thank you.
I hated everything about this. I hated how, first of all, in the beginning, like how smug Peter Parker is, where it's like, like just kind of like laughing to himself and always referring to himself as like, "That's my secret life of Spider-Man." Yeah, MJ knows. Shut the fuck up. Number one. Number two, I hated those rich assholes. I thought the whole story was violently annoying. I'm like, why am I like? And I'll pull the curtain back. I emailed Mike out today and said, "Do you purposely pick the worst ones for me to read?" Because I'm like, what is this? It should have been a comic book for the Muppet Babies, like not Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. What are we doing here? What is it?
Trust me, the issues would have been a lot worse if he was purposely picking out the bad ones.
Oh, yes, trust me, there are far worse.
I was very upset about this.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It was
okay. Go ahead, Josh.
I feel like it was just like whatever. I didn't enjoy it really, but I didn't think it was like, I don't know. I thought it was just a pretty bland, nothing fill-in.
Right.
But this is Spider-Man, who is like gone toe-to-toe with some of like not only some of Marvel's greatest villains, but even Marvel's greatest heroes and stuff. He was baffled by sunburn and
I think that's
Statue of Liberty. Like what?
I think that ties in with Peter Parker getting, Peter Parker has a cold, Peter Parker's costume, the colors ran in the laundry, and him getting a sunburn. I think that fits in perfectly with his personality, of always having bad luck and having something like, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just because I don't think you're wrong about that if I think back to reading these as kids, but I'm also thinking now it makes him seem to me as a character that much more unlikable, because as an adult, I'm like, he's just a whiny bitch, man.
But the thing is, though, how does that make him unlikable? Like, we've all had sunburns before, right? So he's supposed to be the everyman, right?
I don't go outside. Not relatable.
Well, maybe not Becca, but okay.
I don't know. I just read this and I was like, I never realized how much he refers to himself, in the third person. Whether he's referring to Peter Parker or as Spider-Man, it's gross. I didn't care for it.
I don't remember him doing it much other than in this story, so it might just be this particular writer. I don't know, though. I'd have to think about it. But Becca, it sounds like you share Cousin Brandon's opinions about this book. What do you think?
Who drew this? I want to know.
Oh, let's see. Hold on. We should have mentioned that at the beginning. It is Steve Geiger. He also drew, remember the story where the guy gets those superpowers in that small town?
Oh God.
The Thunderbolt, or what was his name?
Yeah, the Smithsville
Oh.
Thunderbolt.
Well, somebody remembered. Yeah. So I love it. I love a good issue of a comic book that's only an excuse to draw scantily clad women. That's my favorite kind of issue,
Dude,
Spider-Man.
dude.
Which is weird that it's such a trend in 80s Spider-Man that every couple weeks there's another one where it's like none of this matters to Peter or the story or anything, but there are boobs. So
Yeah.
at least, look, you got to keep people's attention somehow, right? And the story's not going to be good. At least there's titties. I won't lie though. This Millicent girl, her green jumpsuit's pretty fire.
That I agree with. I'm with you.
Might have to steal that look, but also she sucks. So, but like in a badass boss kind of way. I don't know. I've never been able to relate to the rich. So,
But they are the bad guys. It's not like we're supposed to admire these people, right?
no, but they still have more money and they'll get out of jail immediately, so it doesn't matter. That's life.
No,
right?
yeah. My point is that they're the bad guys, right? Like they are the villains for a reason.
Yeah.
Like Bob Layton is clearly making fun of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just the French really won, right? They won at the end of the story. They got the fake.
I was going to say, did they win? They got the fake one and paid what, $7 million for it. So
it's kind of
idiots.
It's just a blah story. The only thing I liked was when Peter was talking to MJ because, like, thank God they're interacting at least a little bit.
Considering they're getting married in like a few weeks, yeah.
Yeah, like let's like talk to her. Like I know we're not dating yet, but not even yet. I don't think they date before they get engaged.
They haven't been dating for like 10 years, yeah. But anyway,
yeah. It's not even like an on again, off again thing. They're not together.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. So, Michael, you just said something. So, which of these comics happens first? Because you said, like, at this point, are they engaged? In this?
No, chronologically, like, according to publication, this issue came out probably a week before Amazing.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this. Never mind being
matter.
engaged. Yeah, never mind being engaged.
It does not matter.
They have not been dating for like 100 issues or something. It's like,
oh my God.
Like in that meantime, Peter Parker's dated Deborah Whitman, Black Cat, Kazar's girlfriend, random
Black
other
Cat
people,
again.
Black Cat again.
And
Black
to
Cat
kind of
for
go
a
off
third time.
what you were saying too, it's even then, the continuity between the three books is abysmal. It's like nothing.
Right.
Something can happen in one issue and then it's not happening in another. So like the continuity is always really weird. And in stories, they're having to go back and say like, oh, this story happened before Web of Spider-Man number 28 or whatever. Like they're always having to like retrack. They're not really tracking to see where all of the pieces of the puzzle are at a certain time. They're kind of just running with it. So they could be engaged at this point in the comic or they couldn't be. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah,
so wait,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, at least Spectacular, there's a little annotation that tells you when it takes place. So you're like, okay, so they're not engaged yet. Cool.
Right.
But this one didn't.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about. So, like, I remember as a kid, like, when I read all these comics and stuff, I always loved, and like, the little annotations that you're talking about that's like, oh, see Spider-Man number 94, like, oh, this, blah, blah, blah. So, are you saying that they were working together to get the timelines correct, or you're saying it was just a hot mess?
No, it's a hot mess, and they're having to retread on things. Like,
well, but also just to clarify, it's also partly because in the last 6 months, Amazing Spider-Man's writer has been fired. Then Peter Parker's writer was fired. Then the editor of the entire Spider-Man books was fired. Then the editor of Marvel Comics was fired, Jim Shooter, right? So that didn't help, I don't think.
That wouldn't help. And it would be a pretty good excuse if this wasn't going on since 1980. Since we started reading.
I think
it may be a bit better, but it wasn't perfect for sure.
The fill-ins really started when Jim Mosley took over as editor. Maybe it's because he was, 22. That might have helped. But anyway, the point is there's barely any continuity.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, where did we leave off?
Is this truck Optimus Prime? I just want to know.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Oh,
what
looks like
page?
it.
Any
Yeah.
page with the truck on it.
Be a much better comic if it was.
No, wrong model.
Yeah, he's a
but, like,
Peterborough.
I don't know. Okay, cool. I know so much about cars, you guys.
I only know that because of Transformers.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't think I'm a car guy. or
I saw a
anything.
red truck and I was like, oh, Optimus Prime. That would be more. That would make this whole thing really interesting. It's just. It's like what a fun story to recant to MJ. She's just like, what the hell do you do all day? Like, he's like, oh, sometimes I just go to LA and I get my clothes out of the torch from the Statue of Liberty, and sometimes there's some bougie loser kids and they steal it and gotta get it back. You know, all a day's work, Spider-Man.
Yeah, very lazy too. That it's right up front. MJ is like, "How do you know all this?" It's like, "Oh, it all came out."
Right, that
like,
was.
Come on.
Like, just joke that you're like embellishing for like narrative's sake, Peter.
Right.
That's happened before when they've been like, Jonah, how do you know that that's what I said? And he's like, I'm just filling in some gaps or something. Before I say my next point, has everyone here seen Spider-Man? This isn't like a spoiler, but
Yes, I've seen
like
it.
No Way Home.
Yeah.
I've not, but it's fine. I don't care.
Okay, well, I was just going to talk about the Statue of Liberty, and because the Statue of Liberty is in that movie. So to not like spoil anything, I was just like, that's kind of funny that we're reading that this week. And
yeah, that was my
Statue of
first. That was my first thought too. It's like right after talking about the Statue of Liberty changing, we read a comic where Spidey is like talking about the Statue of Liberty and how they're doing work on it. It's great.
And how he used to stash his clothes there because he would mope on the top of the torch. Which
Hey,
Tom Holland Spider-Man should do that. Should mope on the top of the torch of the Statue of Liberty.
So I've not seen any of the Tom Holland Spider-Mans. How is this new film? Good stuff or?
We all bawled like children.
No, that's not true.
Yeah,
we were.
I didn't
I
bawl.
bawled less, but there was some bawling. But I'll tell you that.
Wow.
Are you a fan? Like, I personally am a fan of the Sam Raimi films, and these films are not as good, but this one was the best of the three, probably.
Interesting. Yeah, I it's not that I'm not opposed to watching them. I just haven't. That's all. I'm certainly not going to a movie theater right now. But
Right.
Yeah,
I
probably shouldn't have.
No, but I've heard good things. I mean, that they're all the Tom Holland films are great. I haven't seen them. So.
Yeah, no, I think that he does a really good job of embodying teenage Spidey compared to the other two where they've kind of felt maybe a little bit more on like the adult era of Spidey, especially maybe more Tobey Maguire being the more adult version.
Even though they were all in high school.
Right. Yeah. Even though they were all supposed to all be in high school, he really felt like a high school student. And yeah, they do a relatively good job. It feels like the MCU version of Spidey, but it's still pretty fun.
And is this the last in the Tom Holland Spider-Man? Or
There's no way.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
These movies just vomit out money. There's absolutely no way they're not gonna not make another one.
Good point.
Look,
So
what's Tom Holland gonna do? Say no, thank you. I do not want $500 million. No, thank you.
They're getting close to $1 billion already.
What?
Jesus Christ! I mean, that's like,
oh my god!
we're still in a pandemic.
I think I think I read something about it being internationally at like 775,000.
that is pretty shocking, especially considering we're in a pandemic, because that anyway.
Yeah, but half the population doesn't think we are in a pandemic anymore. So
Good point.
What do you
the
mean?
wrong getting political on this podcast.
Come on. If I could, I'd kiss you all through my computer, right off the mouth, because there's no pandemic. Whatever.
That's assault.
Okay, so let's talk about. There's not much to talk about with this issue, but let's talk about the art quickly. Becca, you touched on it. Cousin Brandon, what did you think of the art here by Steve Geiger? and Vince Colletta.
Fine. I wasn't blown away by the weird thing is, I forget. I know we're going to talk about Amazing Them, but that's getting close, I think, to the Todd McFarlane era, right?
Yeah, it's like 8 issues away. Yeah.
Yeah. So when McFarlane took over for me, that was such a huge. I mean, I'm personally, I know people either seem to love it or hate it. And for me, I loved it. I just thought it looked amazing. Not that I didn't love what preceded it, but it was just so starkly different.
Mm-hmm.
All of these comics that we read to talk about tonight, one of them in particular I thought looked terrible, and it wasn't this one, but the other two I thought were they were fine. I mean, I don't know, they didn't bother me, and they didn't jump out at me as whoa, let's celebrate how great it is. So, I don't know. They're okay.
Josh, what do you think of the art in this one?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty fine. It felt on par with most of what we've read.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I wasn't paying too much attention, but nothing really stood out to be awful in this issue. We'll talk about maybe another one a little bit later, but yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, Vince Colletta, we've talked about him before. Most people hate him. I think he's fine. In this issue, I think he adds to the pencils because he gives it some texture that it wouldn't have otherwise had. So I actually didn't mind the art. It's kind of, again, in about 8 months or 8 weeks for us, this is going to be, this art is going to seem quaint compared to Todd McFarlane. So we're in for a big change very soon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've said all we can about this issue. I'm going to say I can recommend it as a distraction for 10 or 15 minutes, but it's definitely something you can skip for sure. Cousin Brandon, what's your final take on this issue? Would you recommend it?
Hell no.
Okay. Josh?
No, I don't think I would recommend this one. Not that it's awful, but it's just nothing. I don't think anything from this issue is going to stay with me past a week or two. Everything's going to be gone. The only thing possibly is actually I think Becca was the one saying it. I did enjoy the stuff of Peter and MJ talking,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of cutaways back to the present day as he's telling the story was kind of nice, but other than that, it's just whatever fill in.
Okay, Bex Luthor, what do you think?
My feelings are all summed up in one panel when Peter goes to the beach and there's a beautiful woman in a one-piece bathing suit with definitely perky nipples, very important to draw. Also heels on the beach, shout out. And a headless woman where you just see her boobs and her torso. So, yeah, that's...
So
yeah.
that's good or...
Absolutely not. No, that's
okay.
bad. It's bad.
No.
I honestly thought you were going to point to the panel of him sleeping as summing up your feelings about this comic. Because, yeah, I was ugh.
Okay, well, on that note, we're going to jump to... Should we do this in order or should we do it out of order again? Should we save this one for the end?
The one that
The
has
big
any,
one?
any
Amazing?
plot?
Yeah, should we save Amazing for the end?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so now we're going
Mike's like, I want to know now. My turn.
No, it's only because the other ones are so inconsequential. But anyway, so now we're going to jump to Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 128. This one actually does tie in. So this is written by series regular Peter David. I thought he was fired, but I guess he's still around.
I looked at the cover and I forgot what was in this issue. Oh, right.
Silver Sable launches a spider hunt. This is a terrible cover. Spidey getting attacked by whatever they are. And then at the bottom we have this little picture-in-a-picture. Plus the Black Cat in her new costume and a cameo appearance by Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. We cracked the sucker open.
Yes.
Speaking of bad art, we have some pretty terrible art by Alan Kupperberg. I actually don't think the pencils themselves are bad. It's the inks look so rushed and sloppy. It just makes all the figures look ugly and just again sloppy. So
I don't know. It's hard to forgive that face.
Girl, what they do to you?
What happened to her? I feel like I don't really remember her face looking like that in any other panel. It's just this big splash page,
right? That
just looks completely. She looks like that one female gremlin from Gremlins 2. Like that's all. It's just awful.
It doesn't matter because her titties are out.
I guess.
Nobody's looking at her face. Put a mask on. It's fine.
So yeah, we should point out she has now this is Black Cat.
A
in her third costume. Her new costume. How do you describe it?
And you can tell it sticks because it's definitely used today.
Yeah, exactly. This just looks like regular street clothes, right? Basically.
Yeah, in the Matrix.
Spacesuit.
Yeah.
This spacesuit she's got on with gold cuffs.
They better be that notebook. Those gold cuffs.
Maybe it's still the notebook.
I was going to ask, if we have the third incarnation of that notebook.
So it's just a Black Widow ripoff, right? Like this
basically,
outfit?
yes.
It's just really, really bad Black Widow
space
costume?
shoulder pads.
Right.
And
so
a handbag.
So they're kind of like, Black Cat is kind of recapping to Spider-Man, or they're both recapping together. Everything they've gone through in the past few weeks, Black Cat's apartment being blown up, the Foreigner, hiring Blaze and blah, 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 the Kingpin, all that crap. So basically, and also in the previous issue, the fake Blaze was in jail, and then he got murdered by a superpowered, was it Keating that killed him?
Yeah.
Keating, but it was actually the Foreigner, I think, right? Or do we not know that yet?
We don't know that yet.
Okay, we don't know that yet.
But you kind of get, it's kind of revealed in this one if you're kind of paying attention.
Between the lines, yeah, okay.
It's not like, who's the Hobgoblin? They're just like,
Right.
who's Captain Keating? Maybe he's the only other person in the story.
Right. So they want to figure out who's behind this all, and so Spider-Man is like, I'm going to go investigate. So then he takes off. Meanwhile, J. Jonah Jameson is hiring Silver Sable. He wants to hire Silver Sable to assassinate Spider-Man. And this is what's weird is then she says she has someone for the job. I don't know why she just doesn't do it, but whatever. Right? So then Spider-Man goes and he investigates. I don't know if you've read the story, Brandon, but do you remember the story where these kids created a fake villain called Blaze? And
I vaguely remembered it when I was reading this I was like, that sounds familiar, but I couldn't exactly put my finger on it.
Okay, and then all of a sudden the real Blaze supposedly showed up, but then he was killed. So Spider-Man's investigating the two kids that originally created Blaze, and they're like, we have no idea. We don't know anything about this real Blaze, blah, blah, blah. So Spider-Man's like, okay. So then he takes off, and then there's a cop that wants to kill him. There's this really awkwardly written thing where, like, the cop wants to arrest Spider-Man, but then Spider-Man's like, he's like, I was like, okay, he's like, what, he's like, I know you're only trying to do your job, but what happens if you miss me? Because the guy threatens to shoot him. Bullets go through a window and kill. What if a bullet goes through a window and kills some poor devil? And the cop's like, blast! And he like pounds the thing. What again? Yeah, exactly. Garbage. That
was amazing, I thought. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So then we cut over to now this is actually Stan Carter, who's the Sin Eater. He's out of prison or whatever, and he's recovering from his injuries sustained by getting the shit beat out of him by Spider-Man. He actually has a limp and a stutter now. It's kind of pathetic, but this is the guy that murdered Jean DeWolf. And so he's trying to like solve this crime of Spider-Man murdering Blaze, and he's like, I don't actually think it was him. So he's giving his theories to Chris Keating, and Keating's like, well, I don't give a crap what he thinks because he killed Jean DeWolf. So then we cut over to Daredevil lecturing Spider-Man, and actually Daredevil is on his side, but he's like, just be careful, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So then Spider-Man takes off, and then we cut over to Flash Thompson touching base with Betty Brant, who's still like who kind of, she's completely off her rocker now and thinks that Ned Leeds is still alive. So she's keeping the apartment clean for him to come home, blah, blah, blah. And then we cut over to Spider-Man. Look at this. They waste 2 pages on splash pages. Spider-Man gets confronted by Silver Sable's agents, and we waste an entire big splash page on digital page 15 on him getting confronted by these agents. They start shooting at him, and then 2 pages later, we get another splash page, right? So you know that they were just rushing this issue out just to fill space. And so Spider-Man beats all these guys off, and then, of course, well, I shouldn't have said it that way. He defeats these guys, and then he confronts one of them. He's like, hey, you're the one that shot that kid a few issues back. And he's like, yeah. And Nick Fury fired me, but then I was hired by Silver Sable. And she gave me leadership of this job because she knew how much I wanted to see your head in a pike. This is garbage. Anyway, so then Spider-Man webs this guy up. Sorry, I got to take a glass of water, Smith. Spider-Man swinging through the city, goes home, and we get the classic scene of Randy, Candy, and Bambi. Instead of I guess they're sunbathing, but they're all in winter gear. And so he still has to kind of sneak past them, goes into his apartment, and Black Cat is so sneaky, but she's on the phone with a foreigner and talking about how she's like, I thought you understood. Don't worry, Spider-Man doesn't suspect a thing. He's putty in her hands. His problem is same as always, is he's too trusting. But Peter Parker is standing there, and Peter Parker hears. So now Peter Parker knows that the Black Cat has betrayed him, and that's the big cliffhanger. End of story. I thought it was okay, but Cousin Brandon, I got a feeling you didn't think it was okay. What do you think?
So 2 things. Number one, I thought of the 3 comics we read, the artwork in this one was by far the worst.
Yes, it was.
There were shots of Spider-Man in like the black suit where like, did they even bother drawing the face at all? Like I was like, what is that? Like it looks so fucking bad. I was like, This is embarrassing. And keep in mind, I'm not doing this every week like you guys are. I just read this. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Garbage. So that was number one. Number two, and your description of it, while accurate, only proved how convoluted this comic was.
Yeah.
It was like, for someone like me that just came in to read this issue, I was like lost at times. It was like, now we're jumping to Betty Lee, and it was all over the place. I just had a real hard time with it. And my third complaint, you can't have Black Cat and what's her name, Sable. They look too much alike. You can't have both of them in the same comic book.
Good point.
They just look too much alike, and it further confused me. So I thought overall it was once again a shit. Thank you.
Well, just for the record, I got a feeling that they're wrapping up all these dangling subplots as much as they can because they know that a new kind of direction is coming. That's my guess for why they're jumping all over the place. But again, if that is the case, why did they have a fill-in with him freaking losing his costume to the Statue of Liberty? I don't know. But anyway, Becca, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, no. We start off with a big splash panel of the Black Cat's new suit, and that just describes the rest of the issue. You've got the sexiest, the coolest, most badass chick in your comic, and she looks awful. She looks like she's dressed awful. She's dressed by the worst drag queen you've ever seen. I was hating on her old suit. This is bad. Why? Why change it again? And I don't even recognize this suit, so can't imagine it stays for much longer.
No, I think it's one issue only. I don't know.
Oh my god!
And I really like how when they're recapping the events that happened the last week, in the recap, she's wearing the new costume and not the old one.
I didn't even notice that. Really?
And apparently,
oh wow, you're right. That's terrible. Oh my god.
Wow.
So the mullet, the shoulder pads, the pirate boots, the bag. I hate it. I hate it a lot.
It's bad.
I miss the rat tail. I'll say it. It's like, why?
It's the only improvement.
Although I will say, I don't hate the big Batman mask. I don't hate it, but I think whoever drew this issue had to put a big Batman mask on Felicia Hardy because he can't draw women's faces without making them look like dudes. So he's like, she's got to be hot and have her boobs out. So I gotta cover that ugly mug with something. Batman. Done. Yeah, it just J. Jonah hiring the Silver Sable to catch Spider-Man. Why? Does this go anywhere? Do I care?
By the way, does J. Jonah Jameson have $1 million at his
disposal? I was thinking that too. That seems a little bit out of his, pay grade, but who knows?
He owns one of the biggest newspaper companies in New York in the 80s, maybe.
Well,
advertising?
He's the publisher. I don't know if he owns it. But...
Yeah, I was going to say, does he own it?
Well, he owns Now Magazine.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter in the end, but yeah, it does seem... This subplot is also out of left field. Like, why now, right?
Yeah, and out of all of the characters to bring back, bring back the guys who made Blaze. I wanted that story wrapped up. Who cares? Why is Daredevil here to tell Spider-Man, you're doing okay, but watch out? And he's like, yeah, I get it, thanks.
Mhm.
Like every time you've talked to me, you've lied to me the last year. So fuck
Right.
off.
Right.
Betty's outfit is me right
Yes.
now. Oh,
Jeez.
why?
Thank you. I was like, did anybody else see it?
So she's crazy, and that means she dresses like a maid with workout tight. I don't understand.
Right. It was like, we got to make her a whore, but we can't make her a. So we're gonna put it.
Yeah,
Under Armour on.
it looks
Oh
like
my
she's
God.
got on like a sexy Queen of Hearts Halloween
Right.
costume.
Well,
But
you
she
get
I'm
likes
in
to
like
gonna
work
Party
out.
City.
Yeah.
I am
So-
gonna spoil a girl secret for you guys. All women dress like this when we're cleaning our house, waiting for our men to arrive home
I knew it.
from the war.
Do it.
But then we quickly remove it before you get home, so you never see it. I just
Tricksters.
Silver Sable's like goons with the discs.
What is that? It's the worst ship
Stupid.
design I've ever
Yeah.
seen.
They're just flat discs with guns on them. How do they fly? Where's the engine? What's going on? That's not going to protect you from the things you're shooting at. It's like the most minimalist.
They're
Like, just-
they're flying around with those little mini pizza tables. That's their
Yeah, they're little pizza tables,
ship.
and-
It's little pizza tables.
And
hot pink with bright yellow uniforms.
it also
Fashion.
doesn't
More
fit with,
fashionable than Felicia.
it doesn't fit with anything Silver Sable's ever done or been able to do in the past, right? That's not her thing. She's not Shield, right? So why are
Well,
these guys?
What is Sable Enterprises? They just
Well,
they just fight. What is their thing?
She's supposed to be like a hired. I think
But
she's
she has
hired.
she has her own like business though, right? Like
So
what is that?
Sable it's like the whatever country she's supposed to be from. They're like the biggest like money making company in that country or whatever. Like they have
Yeah.
hired goons, and I think she does shady business dealings or whatever. It's never really fully explained. They're just like, she's foreign and has lots of money and is
Right.
a badass. And you're like,
So she's Shield
how?
/AIM / whatever they need her to be. Okay.
except more ruthless, but also less, because it seems like she sends like the worst people. She's like, random guy who hates Spider-Man, go kill Spider-Man for me. You fought Spider-Man. He's just a guy. These are just
Wait.
guys with guns.
You have a yellow
like-
unitard, right, Steve? All right, you're in.
Yeah, Steve's got yellow.
Jump
It's
on
like-
your pink pizza table and get out of here.
Or like, he's like, yeah, oh, that guy that killed that kid that Spider-Man was trying to save? Yeah, you don't hate Spider-Man, right? Go get him. What? Who wants that? Like, we're bringing back all the B team, all the Z team. This guy who
Mhm.
killed that kid whose name I don't remember, because who cares?
Well, can I just
Go
add
ahead.
something too? Speaking of which, when Jonah Jameson is watching Sable fight her own henchmen, I'm here for a workout. Why did we need the thought bubbles from them being like, "Oh, I wish I didn't do this job," or like I forget what they were saying, but they're like, "Oh, she's kicking my ass again."
It's because they
Right.
have to tell you that she's tough instead of just showing you.
It was
Yeah.
so stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
It's actually
What the heck?
because they want you to know that these men are actually enjoying it, and there's nothing sexy about this. They want you to know for sure that these guys don't like this, and it's not a fetish thing. Shut up. What are you even talking about? Which it 100% is. She only kicks guys' asses. Yeah, and they complain about it. Girl, you can find people who will pay you to do that. Like, so the only thing, my biggest problem with this issue is the only thing that actually matters at all is the last 2 pages when Peter walks in on Black Cat and finds
Yeah,
out that
that's
she's
true.
betrayed him. And I still hate it.
Mhm.
Josh, what do you think of this issue?
I mean, I can't believe I got so little out of this after they said so much. Like it's just they did everything in this issue. Like it really reads like somebody rambling real quick about a story that they want to write, and they're like, okay, good, approve, put it out there. It's like, okay, I get some drawing and it's out. Like there's I don't remember anything from this. I know that Black Cat reveal, like Spidey walks in on Black Cat talking to Foreigner about how they're tricking Spider-Man. That's it. Like I what can I possibly say about this issue? It's nothing. I don't. It's so bad.
Yeah, it's pretty throwaway. I mean, I guess
Also-
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This
No,
is
go
like
ahead.
completely off topic.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say the only advantage it has over the web is that at least it ties in with the ongoing storyline. I'll give it that.
Right.
But what were you gonna say?
Is the Baxter Building in the shape of a giant 4? Or does
No.
it have that big 4, or is that just a different building in the
This is
background?
their new headquarters. This is
Yeah.
For Freedom Plaza.
It's stupid.
Because
Okay,
the
I don't
Baxter
remember that.
Building, the Beyonder teleported
Oh,
into
right.
space.
Dr. Doom's
Or Dr.
Dr.
Doom
Doom
did.
Doom
yeah.
blasted into space.
Space, right.
Okay,
And Peter
right.
forgets, and he goes, "Oh, right, the building. They sent it to
I mean,
space."
I know that everybody knows that the Fantastic Four, who the Fantastic Four are, and that they live in the Baxter Building, but isn't this a little maybe too much? The big force up there. Is
Isn't
that
this
part of
when-
the
Mind
building?
that, but
Is that like part of the building? Like,
yeah,
can I live inside the 4 up top?
I think so. Yeah.
Sweet.
I was gonna say, isn't this the around the time where Sue Storm's costume is just a bathing suit with a big 4 boob window?
No, that's like 100 issues later.
My God.
Okay, because I was
Yeah.
gonna say the Fantastic Four are definitely no stranger to just being wild about their branding.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's campy, but it's like, it's like Superman having his big giant key outside of his Fortress of Solitude or the Batcave with the big dinosaur. I mean, yes, I know 4 is just being narcissistic, but I think it fits in with that Silver Age superhero camp, What do you
And
think,
Reed
cousin?
being a narcissist.
Yeah. Cousin Brandon, do you like the 4 on the 4 Freedoms Plaza?
I don't mind it. I mean, again, I'm a narcissist probably to some extent. But you know what I mean? But granted, like on my house, I would probably just like have a giant asshole. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That or a bottle of beer, I guess, whatever it is. So it's like, yeah, we're all branding. It's all brands now.
So I guess the final thing about this issue is, are we excited to find out how this cliffhanger plays out?
No.
No.
All right. Woo! Okay, on to the
Punch
next
her in
one.
the
No.
face, Peter.
Yeah, no. And one, can I just add one other thing about the other thing I hated about this comic in particular was that like there's this thing where it's like, especially with the tease on the cover, oh, Daredevil's in it, and the Black Adam. Guys, sometimes less is more. We don't have to have every story in one comic.
Right,
So,
right.
slow down. So anyway, it was just too much.
So I'm going to safely say that, I mean, technically you need to read this issue because it slightly moves along the subplots, but it's definitely not a good one, so you could skip it. Becca, do you recommend this one?
Nah, I mean, what am I recommending? The story? No. The art? No. The 2 pages where Black Cat gets caught in her web of lies? Sure. The next issue is way funnier though, when Peter figures it out. So
There you
I
go.
guess read this one so you can see that.
All right. Josh, what do you think?
No. So it's called the 4 Freedoms Plaza.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Roosevelt's speech.
Well,
Not the Fantastic Four.
no, it's 4 Freedoms.
4
Plaza.
freedoms,
Yeah.
which is the freedom of speech and expression, freedom of every person to worship God in his own way. That's cool. Freedom from want and freedom from fear.
Right.
That is what it's named after, not even the Fantastic Four, which are really
Fantastic Four
Reed-
freedom.
Reed. Come on, we know why it's called 4.
Yeah, what a coincidence. Just like
Yeah.
the X-Men are named after their extra powers, not Professor X.
Right.
Right?
It's
Anyway,
their X gene,
yeah.
like Jean Grey.
Okay,
Dead.
cousin Brandon, do you recommend this issue? You're gonna read it again?
Absolutely. No, I mean, no. Why? No. Yeah, like, I think, again, like you said, the only reason really to read it is just because to see how it ties into what
Mm,
comes next. But I thought it was garbage,
mhm.
just like the other one. What are you doing to me? Why do I agree to do this nonsense?
It's okay. We'll invite you back on again soon. It's gonna be fun. Okay. So with that, I guess we're gonna move on. Oh,
I also
Josh,
got some good news. Yeah,
Oh.
in Earth 9047, in the Humorverse,
Oh,
the 4 Freedoms Plaza is renamed to the 4 Fritos Plaza.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Now, wait, what is this you're talking about? I have no idea.
It's like an alternate dimension where everything's goofy.
Yeah, everything's
This
like-
this is going on right now in comics.
No, this is
No.
from a while ago. I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
It was like the Saturday morning cartoon version of
Okay.
the Marvel universe, but like everything's just a dumb joke.
Can you give me any other examples offhand that you can think of?
There's the Bulk instead of Hulk.
Mhm. It was funny.
Is this
There's,
in what the comics?
Yeah, it's in What the.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Knew it.
Yeah.
okay.
There's the
Gotcha.
Behinder instead of the Beyonder.
I love that.
That's good.
That's-
The
That's
Silver
awesome.
Purper, anyone?
I'm taking behind her. That's
Well, I know.
my-
Yeah.
my
There's
new
Superb
name.
Man.
What was the last
Yeah.
one? Josh?
Superb Man.
No, the book before that.
Oh, the
Silver
Silver
Surfer?
Burper.
Oh,
That
that's
it?
That's
Mm.
bad.
no. What's
There's a
the silver
gas.
got to do with anything?
Because it rhymes with surfer, kind of.
Burper, silver
Cap right.
burper.
Yeah.
Does he
Yeah.
burp silver?
Probably. Good news though, Dr. Octopus is still called Dr. Octopus.
Mm.
Oh, that's just funny then.
Yeah.
Comedy. He's like, hey, has anyone lost a rubber band with a bunch of $20 bills in it? Because we found the rubber band. Doc Ock, classic comedy.
There
That's
is
the joke
also
he
a
makes in
chair.
the second one.
There's also
There's
a
a
chair, a super powered chair.
Okay,
He's
that's
got
Oh, I
not
thought
great.
you meant like it was
Stuff.
a spin on Cher, which I thought was
No.
easier.
No, it's just
Okay.
it's just like a wooden dinner chair with superpowers.
I love that.
Okay, well, I know what I'm looking up after this. That sounds great. I was like not on board at all until you said superpowered chair, and I was like, my kind of
Yes.
humor. Never
That's
mind.
pretty good. I know. I'm a fan. That's great.
We have to talk about
Okay.
Peter Parker having feelings now.
Nah, who cares?
Sick. I want to
Okay.
talk about the chair with superpowers.
So, on that note, we're going to move on to Amazing Spider-Man number 290.
Nothing says please marry me like a big looming shadow of your alter ego right on the cover. Mary Jane, marry me. It's important. Oh my god. So this issue is called Peter Parker has an existential crisis and thinks a woman should fix it all. We fucking Peter, man. We start off the issue. Peter is on just a rooftop, screaming about how happy he is, which that's if you've got to yell it, it must be true. And he's so happy that he just breaks someone's chimney. And he's like, if he's talking about how I've finally reconciled with the fact that I want to be Spider-Man, finally. I've decided that, being Spider-Man is what I want to be. It makes me happy. But why do I feel so miserable? I don't know, Peter.
Mhm.
Maybe the world's complicated. So he's moping around and on a roof, and then a security guard with a dog comes by, so he jumps off. And he's swinging around, and he comes across just a restoration event. They're celebrating the restoration of some buildings in New York at Times Square. Meanwhile, the mayor is being held up at gunpoint by my new favorite antagonist, the Preserver.
Yes.
So he's holding a gun and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill the mayor if anyone gets any closer because I want to preserve the integrity of these old buildings," which good cause. So Spider-Man whips his whips, takes the gun, which wasn't even loaded, and he tells the police to go easy on him. He's just a guy who didn't read the papers because they're not tearing the buildings down; they're restoring them so that they stay around for longer. They're literally doing what he wanted them to do. But anyway. The mayor's like, "Oh, make sure you, J. Jonah Jameson, write something nice about Peter Parker Spider-Man because he saved the day." And Peter's like, "Yeah, cool. So all these great things are happening. Peter's helping people. Nobody got hurt. J. Jonah had to acknowledge that he was great. So why does he feel so crummy?" So he goes home and mopes around a little bit. He's like, "You know what? I got to talk to somebody who knows I'm Spider-Man. Who's the one person that I could talk to who knows I'm Spider-Man?" And I almost thought for a second he was going to talk to Black Cat. But thank God he did. He went to go see Mary Jane. So he walks into her apartment and her door's unlocked because no fear. Also, she's expecting company. And he goes in and talks to her and he's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just sad. Just a sad guy. Like, Mary Jane, please help me. I'm sad. And she's like, "Why don't you go talk to Aunt May? Stop bothering me. I'm busy." So, and then like Peter leaves and Mary Jane's like, oh, I'm so proud of myself for putting Peter's happiness above my own. I'm like, girl, that's still narcissistic, but okay. All right, just awful people hanging out together. So Peter goes
Man,
goes to
I
visit
am
Aunt May.
amazing.
Man, I'm the best. I'm so great. I told Peter to go talk to his aunt instead of me, and makes him happy. Cool.
You just read Mary Jane.
So Peter goes to visit his Aunt May, who he hasn't seen in a bit, which he couldn't think of to do already. Like, oh, I'm feeling sad. Maybe go see your mom, Peter, or the woman who raised you. I don't know. So he's like, oh, where's everyone who lives in your house? And they're all at this charity church auction, and she didn't go because she's feeling sick. And so Peter goes upstairs to his old bedroom where all the magic started, the original Spider-Man costume and everything. And he notices that his microscope is gone. And Aunt May says, oh, I had them come in here to grab some toys for the auction. They must have grabbed it. And Peter's like, oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it, Aunt May. And then he continues to grumble about it the whole way to the church. He's like, that microscope, Aunt May, Uncle Ben got me that microscope. It's so important to me. I have never mentioned it prior to now. So he goes to the church auction, and he goes into the church, and he's like, hi, I'm looking for the priest. And there's a guy in like all red who's like, we're closed, you can't see the scepter. And immediately I'm like, well, that's gonna be a MacGuffin later. So Peter's like, I'm here to talk to Father or whatever about my microscope. So he turns out that the charity auction for charity was for orphans for charity. So Peter feels bad about asking for his microscope back. So instead, he's just going to buy it back with the $42 that he has in his pocket, his life savings. Good for you, Peter. You know what? It may not be a smart decision, but it is a good one at least. So Peter leaves, and they're talking more about how this scepter is worth so much money, and the church has this scepter, and yada, yada, yada. And then Peter's lamenting a little bit more. He walks past a father and son, and the boy's like, oh, Dad, I want another quarter to throw another ball to win a bear or whatever. And the dad goes, you don't need to throw baseballs. You're going to be a foot doctor like me. And the kid's like, but I want to play baseball or whatever sport. And so Peter's like, thank God Aunt May and Uncle Ben didn't force me into their own twisted, like, worldview of what I should be and just let me make my own decisions. Yeah, Peter, you were really lucky that you were raised by two loving people. What's your problem? So Mary Jane then calls Aunt May because she's got something happened. We don't know what, but something happened. She's frazzled. So she's like, oh, is Peter still there? And Peter's not still there. So she's like, oh, don't worry about it. And Peter, meanwhile, is spending his 42 last dollars on Earth to buy back his childhood microscope that means so much to him. Because he's talking, like, the whole time he's been talking about how he misses doing science, and that was such a crucial part of his identity. And he's been so busy being Spider-Man that he doesn't have time to be Peter Parker, and maybe he needs more balance in his work, Spider-Man life, Peter Parker relationships, and everything. But this microscope will fix it. So, just as they're about to start the auction for the microscope, some kids run off with some money that they stole. And so he's like, well, gotta go punch these children that stole money. That stole $7 from this church auction. So he suits up, he goes swooping after it, but then all of a sudden his spidey sense goes off because there's real danger. And it turns out that guy in red is stealing the scepter. Shocking. So he points a gun at these security guards, and Peter comes in, saves the day, and gives him a punch. But then the security guards are like, oh, Spider-Man, get him! Even though he's literally saving them, but okay, like, shoot him. Like, shoot first, right? Like, so they shoot at him, and the priest is like, what are you doing? We're in a church! So then Peter, the red guy with the scepter, gets away, and he runs away, and he goes, and he finds some kids hanging on scaffolding, because, you know, the 80s, there's nothing going on. What else do you do? And he grabs a kid as a hostage, and Peter realizes that there's paint cans behind him, so he uses the paint cans to distract the guy in red. And then he decks him right in the freaking chin. Good deck, just knocks this guy right out. And then the kid runs away, and he's like, Mom, Dad, you won't believe it, Spider-Man saved me. And he's covered in paint, and his parents are like, oh, you and your stories. As if, like, shit doesn't happen in New York all the freaking time. Whatever. Peter gets a couple pictures so he can sell them for later, and he makes it just in time for the auction to buy his microscope for $41 because he's thinking smart and he's going to need that dollar. So then now that he has his microscope and his existential crisis is finished because his life is now fulfilled, he realizes what he needs to do. And it's something that he should have done years ago, even though at this point, I think he's like 22, 23, right? Like, how old is Peter?
Well, they don't say
Yeah.
really.
But like, he's not that old. If he didn't drop out, he'd probably still be in college. But so he decides he knows exactly what he has to do. So he goes to see Mary Jane, and she's packing because something's going on. And so he's like, "Oh, I wish I could have bought you flowers, but I only had $1 left. So here's some M&Ms." So it definitely doesn't have a ring. And she's like, "Oh, I gotta change my voicemail. I gotta cancel my modeling gigs. I gotta go. I gotta get out of here." And Peter doesn't question. He says, "What about what I have to say, though, Mary Jane? Who cares? I have something to tell you." And then he doesn't even bend on one knee and just grabs her by the arms and goes, "Will you marry me?" right in her face. And then the issue ends. So
Can I just quickly say,
Go ahead.
Bravo to that recap. That was fucking hilarious. Seriously.
Yeah.
That was so funny. Anyway.
you.
Honestly, guys, this one not only was the best one, but I thought this issue was fine. I thought the story was fine. I thought the art was great. I love the art. The story wasn't spectacular, but I thought it was good. Like, again, the other two are such a mess that this one is just like baseline. It's like, oh yeah, this is a story. Things happen. They get resolved. There's a point to it. You can nitpick all you want, but at least this one was readable, I thought. Cousin Brandon, what did you think?
So of the three, I would agree. I think this is the best of the three. I still did not love it. I still thought it was wildly problematic. I was, as you just recapped, the end of it, I was like, what kind of toxic male shit is this? That he hasn't even once said to her, why do you need to leave? Is everything okay? Like, what? Like, he's just like, I know, I gotta marry you, motherfucker. So that drove me crazy. I hated the scene with the paint cans where you're like, come on, I know if I just reach around and flip those, like, come on, that was fucking horrendous. Just the whole time, I guess I was so. Oh, by the way, Peter Parker looks like he legit could have been in Duran Duran and some of these shots. I was like, what is this outfit you're wearing? What is happening here? So there was a lot to hate, for me anyway, a lot to hate about this. But again, of the three, I thought it was the best just story. And even though it kind of felt like a sort of bottle episode, so to speak, it was building on things that had happened before and it was clearly going somewhere. So I was like, okay, it was transitional, but it wasn't as bad as the torch horseshit. So that was kind of my feeling.
Okay, Josh, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, it's fine. I always kind of like when they don't feel like they have to force a big bad guy into the story. I was a little worried when the what's his name, the Preserver shows up. I was like, there's no way they're going to introduce like a D-list superhero and like have him be the bad guy in the MJ proposal issue. But luckily that ended really quick. It wasn't fantastic, but it was nice to see that the story was really about Peter making a decision and it wasn't about defeating a bad guy at the end, so that by the end of the issue when he asks her, it feels like there's a payoff. Not that it was great, like it wasn't like I don't think that anything he thought about or like his like decision making was good, but at least they had the forethought of like not making this like Doc Ock is back. Oh no, I gotta fight him. Hey MJ, you want to get married or what? Like there was it's nice when they don't need to do that big thing. But yeah, it was, I don't know, it was okay. A little weird with the whole microscope thing. Like Bex was saying, I don't think I've ever heard him talk about the microscope. I don't know if this is something actually from the origin when like
it is, yeah. It's in the Amazing Fantasy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then that's That's kind of interesting then, if they're going to call back to like a specific line or panel or something from the first issue. But um, I think it could have also just been better if this was really about Peter holding on to his past and needing that microscope, and then by the end realizing that he doesn't need the microscope and he doesn't get it back, and he lets go of the past and doesn't have to.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah.
The whole thing is, this whole day has made me realize that it's time to start my new life and stop living in the past and move on, right? And like get my priorities straight. You literally just spent the entire issue looking for a microscope that you used as a kid that you haven't used in years because you've left it at your Aunt May's house. Didn't even realize it was gone until Aunt May almost like bumped into the spot it used to be. Like it's something you've never used before, but still, it's like your entire motivation for this issue is this stupid thing. So it just feels weird that he ends up buying it back at the end. It feels like the opposite of what the story is trying to do and like the direction he's going, right? But I don't know.
Yeah, like he could have as easily instead been like, okay, well, this is how about buy a new microscope? You're realizing Peter Parker loves science still, like you still have that part of you. That's great. But notice that old microscope is in the past, and now you get an adult one for adult science or like something.
Adult science. I got to point out quickly that the microscope was brought back in Amazing Spider-Man 181.
He puts it on the grave.
And Peter Parker left it on Uncle Ben's grave. So this is technically a plot hole, but as they say, there could have been 2 microscopes. Who knows? But anyway.
But he puts it on Uncle Ben's grave as
one
like
for each eye.
Moving on. Like that's the whole point of that story is he's like, here, Uncle Ben, you did this for me. Like this is for you, and now I'm like taking away from. It's just like retconning that.
Yeah, it's strange.
Can I just add real quick, Mike, before you throw it, 2 things real quick. I couldn't stand the fact that like the bid had gone up to going for 40, going 42, and they're like, oh wait a minute, I have 42. Bid 41. You just bid 42. Number one. That's number one. Number 2. Does Aunt May have COVID?
It's the 80s, so it's probably. Oh, I was gonna make a bad joke. I'm just
make that joke.
Nope.
Hey, what was the joke?
Don't worry about it.
I think it was 8.
Just thinking.
Aunt May sucks.
I mean, that's true.
That's
Aunt May is out there doing like. Look, we know most of these cases happening in these old homes. These people are fucking. So Aunt May has got. She's plus. Sorry.
So, Becca, you didn't give your actual review of the comic yet. What'd you think of this one?
So, contrary to my review, like my recap of it, I didn't hate it. It's weird. I'm very on 2 planes about this. I liked the comic, but I hate Peter.
Okay.
Like his mindset, like it totally makes sense. It's like it makes sense for him. He's stupid. He's dumb about love and life and that kind of stuff, and it totally makes sense and it works. But I absolutely abhor it. It's just like Peter, you dumb little shit. I love you with all my heart, but oh man, did you just whiff this one hard? Like nobody should look at this and be like, that's how to woo a woman and get my life together. But I also fully believe that this is something Peter would do. He would get his childhood microscope and he would be like, there we go, problem solved. Now I just have to marry my not girlfriend. And he goes and he's like, shut up, whatever. Marry me, Peter Parker. And it's like, it shows that like he thinks he's growing up, but he's still got so much more to do. And she doesn't say yes, right? She's just like, fuck, you brought me M&Ms. You have $1 to your name. Let's get married.
Well, she's gonna say yes in 2 issues, but we don't want to spoil it because they do get married. But anyway.
So Michael, I was going to ask you, so because I don't want to jump ahead because I'm sure you're going to review the comic next week. But does she reveal why she has to go to where she's going? I don't remember.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a thing.
It is. Okay, so that's written into the comic. Okay. I just couldn't remember. I thought I'd ask.
It's something to do with her sister or something.
We're going to
Okay.
get to that in 1 minute, but before we do, I want to talk about the artwork quickly. I already said how much I loved it. John Romita Jr., as we know, had a regular run on Amazing with Roger Stern, which Josh and I reviewed every issue of, and we were big fans. His art has evolved slightly since then. It's also inked by Vince Colletta, so it's got a slightly angular style to it. But Josh, what do you think of the art in this one?
Yeah, I feel like it fits the classic JRJ Amazing Spider-Man look. It makes, not only is this like a classic comic in the things that happen with like Peter proposing, but it's also a classic because of just how it looks. Like I feel like even without seeing the cover first, if I was flipping through this, it would feel like exactly what I think of when I think of like Bronze Age comics.
Right.
So yeah, it was pretty good. Definitely the best of the three from this week for sure.
Becca, what'd you think of the art?
Yeah, no, I definitely liked it. It definitely felt in an issue where like Peter is being introspective about himself being Spider-Man and stuff. It was definitely really nice to see a lot of Peter and not so much Spider-Man, because like now he's gotten it. He's like, Spider-Man, me and Spider-Man, we're good, but what about me and Peter? So just like the fact that it is somebody who's good at drawing emotions on faces and like that you can convey that, that's great. I love that. There is one panel where he like is talking about the microscope and it's like a flashback and it's like half Peter face that his eyebrow is just kind of hanging out. That bugged me. But besides that, yeah, I thought it was pretty decent. I love Peter's smug face and his curly hair. You don't see the Peter Parker curly hair anymore.
Hair, yep.
I love his dumb curly brown hair.
It looks so much like Tom Holland in these pictures. Like the hair he had, Tom Holland in real life, not in the movies. In real life, has this like really curly hair that's like pushed back and kind of like parted in the middle.
Cousin Brandon, what'd you think of the art?
I don't have much more to add other than to say this looked the most like how I remembered Spider-Man looking, and I guess at times he looked like Simon Le Bon or John Taylor.
John Taylor. Yes,
I didn't recall that, or Roger Taylor. Either way, whatever.
Yeah.
But I definitely, in reading of these three, the other two just look like shit. I thought, like this one at least, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I loved Amazing Spider-Man the best out of all the Spider-Man books.
Right.
It just looked like how I remembered it looking. So,
right. I agree. So I guess the final thing is, and obviously the three of us will talk about this more in the coming weeks, but Cousin Brandon, I want to know your opinion on Peter Parker getting married to Mary Jane. I mean, we've already kind of said that it comes out of nowhere, but what is your take on the marriage? Do you have any opinion about it?
So, again, it's been like I've not been back to these since I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like so it's as if I'm reading these for the first time. But in my memory of it, and again, I could be misremembering it, but it always was like this will they, won't they kind of thing in a way, because it's like she was always there in his life, but then she was gone and another woman would come, but then she'd reappear. And she always, if I'm remembering correctly, I thought Mary Jane was always the one that like would show up once again where you think like, okay, maybe something's going to happen here. The way he proposed though and everything, like again, like we just talked about, was out of fucking nowhere and was so gross. I thought like it really, I just thought the whole proposal discounted anything she had going on with her life. Like, I don't know, like I said, the few comics that led up to this, I don't know. But here in this instance, it felt really gross. It felt all about Peter. It felt like it had nothing to do with some sort of relationship between the two of them. And I hated it. Now, I know they get married, but tell me, like, you have to remind me, like, because it falls apart at some point, though, correct?
Well,
like
not until like 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, like it lasts
really?
solidly.
Oh,
well, they get married and they're solid. Like in our real time, they're solid for at least 10 years. Then I think they split up. She takes off, dies, comes back to life. They get back together, and then in 2008, like Josh said, that's when they erase the marriage. Mephisto erases the marriage.
Yeah, so they
So-
never get divorced.
No. So
Jeez.
in our real time, it lasts like 21 years. But I mean, yeah, it's solid. Like,
What? And how does she die? Sorry,
I think a plane blows up and she's in it, right, Josh? Do you remember?
Yeah, and I think it turns out that she's not actually dead, right?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Is this during
yeah.
the Clone Saga?
Yeah, I was not reading Spider-Man. I don't even know what happened. Yeah, I think it was
Wow.
during the Clone Saga.
Mhm.
This sounds
'Cause-
bananas. Okay.
Well, she dies after the baby, right? Or is that before?
Yeah, they have a baby and then it's
Ooh.
stillborn, but then
Yeah.
you find out it was kidnapped. I don't know.
Yeah, you
It's all
find out
crap.
that it wasn't stillborn, but it was just killed.
Yeah,
Oh
it's something
my
like
God.
So it doesn't matter at all.
garbage. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, they were
Mhm.
gonna bring the baby back, right? For like
Well-
they bring back somebody else.
I don't know.
instead.
In the What If story, the baby becomes Spider Girl, and then that becomes a regular series for like
It's
It's
100.
like an alternate universe, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And actually, May Parker is like in the comics right now.
Yeah.
Like they're talking
Oh,
like
is she?
I think it was the Doctor Strange story before the death of Doctor Strange. Because Doctor Strange has like a conversation with Mephisto about May Parker. And
Is
like
May, so not his Aunt May. You're saying
No.
May.
Yeah.
They
May
named
Parker
yeah.
Watson. And they named the daughter after
God.
May.
Mhm.
Like
This
she
is
has a name.
bananas. I've never
Yeah.
heard any of this.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Aunt May is also dead at the time, I believe.
Yeah, so instead
So
of
they
bringing
name
because
her-
like yeah, she's dead too. Well, they think she's dead. And then she
Right,
actually
I also
died.
think she's dead.
No, they think she's dead, and then she does actually die, right? And then she gets brought back.
Oh my-
She gets gets brought back in 2008 with One More Day.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's when they were actually going to bring back May Parker the baby instead of Aunt May, but then they bring back Aunt May instead. Because if you're
Comics
erasing
are cool.
yeah, you're erasing the marriage, why would you want a child like Peter Parker being a dad? Is this why we don't have any friends? Because this is the shit that we're
Because
into.
Hey, we
just
have each
spent
other,
10
that's
minutes
all that
talking about
matters.
it. Yeah. Anyway.
and like it is all really confusing and weird and convoluted, but also like I feel like that's just comics. That's always what comics have been.
Well, that's what happens when you've got 80 years of continuity. You
Yeah.
try to make it all work together. It's
Yeah.
just not gonna.
Yeah.
So you might as well just say, well, this is what's happening right now. So if you're reading this, you need to know this. That's it. But what about this? Don't worry about it.
hmm
They're alive now.
Anyway, I'm the only one on Earth that agrees with Joe Quesada erasing the marriage. So anyway, if technically in continuity, Mary Jane only agrees to live with him, and all those stories where they're married, they're technically just living together as a couple now. That's how they explain it. But anyway,
So
So,
they
yeah.
have a child out of wedlock, is what you're saying.
yeah, I guess technically they did. Yeah.
They
What?
get married on the steps of New York City, right? Isn't there like an actual officiant stuff or?
Oh no, they get married. I'm saying that
Oh, because
they've
of the
erased
One More
it.
Day.
Yeah, they've erased. Like
Oh, they
they've
erased it.
They've erased continuity. So now, when you go back and read these stories, you have to read it as if they're just living together because they technically didn't get married.
Well, no, you can read it like they got married and then they get erased.
And then, yeah.
It's like I
It's just
know
that-
that Peter Parker's Spider-Man.
Right. Their memories together aren't of them married. It's of them being
Living
roommates,
together,
But they were technically married.
Yeah, because it's like
Yeah.
Mephisto like steals the marriage, but he steals like the love, right? Like that's the point.
Who knows? No, he steals
mean-
the marriage, not the love.
You guys are making me glad that I don't read comics
Yeah.
anymore.
Because I'm gonna tell you, they retcon this again, like recently. Like they give Mephisto a reason as to why he steals Peter Parker's marriage.
Oh my God.
I think they've revised it twice. But anyway,
Yeah, so he steals Peter Parker's marriage because in the future he knows who defeats him,
that's right.
and in the
that's
future
right.
who defeats him is May Parker
Oh
Spider
my
Girl.
God.
So he has to
Wow.
prevent Peter from married and having a child. The marriage, like he could just have a child out of wedlock. I don't understand why he had to steal. It's like, yeah,
Wow.
Well, anyway, so
this
we're
is a
glad.
bad proposal.
Yeah, and the thing
Yeah.
is, it's going to get worse. We still have to read the marriage and the honeymoon. That's coming up soon.
Oh
I
my
guess-
god, all this stuff happens. Yeah,
It would have been better if he would have just proposed after the Statue of Liberty story.
yeah, the romantic.
It would have been more
sex.
Yeah.
romantic.
It would have been more
would've been,
natural, yeah.
Him like sharing his life as Spider-Man with her, and then sharing his life with Peter with her forever. You know what I mean? Like, look, I went on this adventure, but I don't have to do it alone anymore. We can do it together. Like, this is nothing. He just barges in. It's like, yo, what's up? I bought my telescope back. Let's get married.
And some M&M's.
Here's some M&Ms just
Brought
for
a
you because
pound of M&M's for
What?
$1.
for my girl, my best girl. Here's some M&Ms. Like, what a selfish brat. This woman, I don't understand my purpose as Peter Parker. This woman will fix me. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Dudes, don't get married if you think that that's gonna work. Just, take a class, learn a skill. Nah, marriage. How about you
Well,
take
on
her on
that
a
note-
fucking date? They're not even dating. Maybe
That-
kiss her a couple times.
That's also really weird too, because like I remember when she shows back up in his life, they were kind of like talking and going out as if they were going to be dating, right? Like they kind of had like a fling again. But then all of a sudden they were like recently strictly just friends. Like they talk about it all the time, how they're just like best friends. And then so yeah, this definitely comes out of like
Well,
left field for sure.
He's proposed to her before, right?
It got turned down, yeah.
Yeah, and she goes, nah, I don't want to be tied down. And then he's like, okay. And then he dates Black Cat for a while. And she's like, but that's not what I meant. I meant I wanted you to just wait for me, bitch.
Yeah.
But they both suck,
Well,
is what
okay.
it comes down to, which is fine because I'm not going to say I didn't suck at 22. Absolutely.
I
So,
didn't.
I mean,
Well,
suck now.
the thing is, let's be clear. The reason this is all happening is because of editorial mandate. Stanley got the idea to marry them off in the comic strip, and then someone had the idea. Well, why don't we also have them get married in the main book and make a big event out of it? And they just thought that they could, have all this publicity and sell comics and get attention from the mainstream news media, which they did. So that's why they did it. And apparently, all the writers were against it. Roger Stern was against it. I think Ron Frenz was against it. Jerry Conway was against it, but they had to go along with it, and that's why they did it. So,
well, it really doesn't make sense. Marriage, like if he was like, so what's the one thing missing in my life? Like I'm happy as Spider-Man. I have everything that I need. Like what's missing? And he goes, oh, you know what? I actually do love Mary Jane. And then he tells her, instead of will you marry me? He's like, you know what, Mary Jane? I love you. Why
Sure.
isn't that what happened?
Mm-hmm.
well, that's looking back. We know that's what should have happened, right? But
Yeah, why we gotta get married right away? Jesus. If a guy I wasn't dating came up to me and he's like, let's get married, I'd be like, who let you into my house? You need to leave.
anyway, so Cousin Brandon, we'd love to have you on again. Hopefully, the next batch of comics we read are better than this one. I'll have you know that the writer of this issue, which you probably know, goes on to write the next 88 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, because David
Wow.
Michelinie will be back. Yes.
The next 8. Okay. Good.
Minus a couple, but he's for the most. Yeah, I think he misses 3 issues. But anyway,
No, I'd love to come back. I mean, as much as I sit here and complain about how much I hate reading these, the nostalgia factor alone is great. I really, again, I don't remember them, but I do remember them, and that's what's
Yes.
so much fun. I see these covers and I'm like, yeah, I own these. I read these. They're wonderful. So
and then you reread them, you realize they're not wonderful.
no,
Exactly.
they're garbage.
Yeah.
Fine, but I still enjoy it though, and that's.
Yes.
And it's fun to talk to you. I mean, but the 3 of you, your knowledge is astounding. I feel like a fool talking to you guys, but it's really fun to listen to you guys. So yeah.
It's
sure.
nothing to be proud of. Anyway.
I do research.
Oh, I don't. I just go up.
I was like, I
just go
don't.
for memory. Yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Beck.
no, Mike goes from memory. I like make sure I know what I'm talking about sometimes because
Oh.
as a woman on the internet, if I make a mistake, then it is forever going to haunt me.
Name
Well,
3
either way,
Spider-Man
I
villains.
find the
Anyway.
3 of you impressive. Is all I'm saying. I'm like, you guys
Oh,
do a
thank
good
you.
job. So yeah.
Well, thankfully, we've made a successful career out of it, getting paid to do this.
You guys getting paid?
Holy shit. We'll talk later. Anyway, okay. Thank you, Becca, for joining us again.
Yeah, look, I don't want to leave my house for the rest of my life, so I will do as many podcasts as you want because this is my social interaction.
You and me both.
Good to know. All right. I guess, Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. It really helps when you leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, or you could drop us a line on Twitter at HCTSpidercast. Please let us know what you guys think about the comics we're reading and talking about, and let us know what you guys think about the podcast itself. Let's keep that comics conversation going.
All right, so until next Monday, see you later.